What do we make of this election result? Is the death of secular Turkey much exaggerated?
I think that what we saw yesterday was very much a referendum on President Erdogan himself. I think he's been in power for more than a decade. During that time that he has been in power, he's been growing increasingly authoritarian. When Erdogan first became prime minister in 2003, he became prime minister with very much an inclusive message. He actually told me, and when I was in a meeting with him in Ankara shortly after he became prime minister, that said there's 72 million people in Turkey and he represents each and every one. He had talked about minority rights, he had talked about reaching out to the Kurds, and in fact President Erdogan was probably one of the only leaders in Turkey that has gone as far to reach out to the Kurds and bring them to the table for a peace and reconciliation process. What we've seen over the past 4 and 5 years, and what we saw in 2013 with the Gezi Park protests, is Erdogan playing a very authoritarian heavy hand. And that, I think, is what Turkish voters lashed out against.
How will he adapt? As you mentioned the Kurds 3 times. I had to do an interview in New York once on the Kurds because they didn't want me to do the interview in Istanbul. That's the tensions that are there. If we have a partition of Iraq and a northern Kurdish Iraq, how will Erdogan and the new Turkey adapt to that?
I think foreign policy is definitely on the table right now, but I think, as Elliot said, I think that right now, internally, there's a lot of political issues in Turkey that need to be addressed, the economy, and then the question of the Kurds. With the AKP very weakened, there is a question of whether what happens to the peace process. That could actually be something that brings a coalition together if the HDP is able to come and form a coalition and resume those talks, but it's also it's probably more likely that those talks will be put on the back burner.
Who are the disaffected who left his coalition? What has changed in Turkish politics?
I think what's changed, I think what we saw yesterday was very much that the Turkish people said, you know, I think Turkish voters, much like voters everywhere, vote with their pocketbooks.
Is it a young demographic that changed their minds? Is it people who are involved in business? Who is it who actually left his side?
Well, number one, the AKP got a lot of votes from the Kurds. That's where a lot of his votes came from. Okay. In 2011, when he won by 49%, the majority of those votes came from the Kurdish southeast. Those votes clearly defected to the HDP. Okay. But you had a lot of secular middle-class urban Turks who support the People's Republic Party, which is the party of the founder of Turkey, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. A lot of those people and the liberals defected to the HDP and to support Selahattin Demirtas, who's the head of the HDP, primarily because Erdogan has been, casting this very anti, this anti-establishment, anti-gay, anti-woman.
I gotta jump in here. We could stay on this topic for another half hour, even hitting the Turkish Central Bank, but we're going to move on. Thanks to Elmira Bayrasli. She's the co-founder of Foreign Policy Interrupted.